All rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Here.
Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
Here.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear. An electronic device, please put it on vibrate. Okay, I make a motion to open the public hearing for Birch Hill Highview Water District.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think this is about the fourth public hearing that we've had on this, which is unfortunate for all of us. The project is basically being completed. I see Ms. Bruin is in the audience here. Thank you for providing the information just recently that we asked for.
Oh, that was my sister Kathleen.
Pardon?
My sister Kathleen.
Kathleen? Okay.
Right.
She provided us with the information we needed to basically, I wouldn't say close out with the DEC, but every time we provide documents, they want more. But you provided information which has been helpful. Thank you.
So what do we do now?
Now we're having this public hearing tonight because now all the costs associated with the project are in. We estimated originally, unfortunately, $1,200 is the cost, and now it's $1,400. And the estimated cost originally was $250, and ended up being $275. And that's the purpose of the public hearing tonight, to explain to those in the district that the cost went from basically estimated $1,200 to $1,400, and the amount borrowed will be $275 and not the $250. So if you have some questions, further questions, we'll try to address them to the best of our ability. Now, again, I just spoke, the Bruins have provided us, the state is requiring some additional information from us. We'll work with them to compile all the records and documents required, and hopefully we'll get this wrapped up soon, and it'll be all yours.
So we're basically increasing by
Right,
25.
To $200.
200, okay.
Yeah, per family. I think you'd be more comfortable sitting up here, wouldn't you?
No. I don't like microphones, though. My name is Victoria Desidero. I live at 10 Birch Hill Road. I think that, some of the neighbors are just asking what was the increase in the cost that we didn't anticipate.
What was the nature of it?
Yeah, why did it go up?
Well, because originally it was an estimate, and when you actually go in there and actually do the work, and, the requirements may have increased, it came out $25,000 more than we anticipated.
So the $25,000 is the additional that we borrowed.
That we will be borrowing to bring it up to date and also give you some money in reserve in case something happens, because you're coming in with no money in reserve. So this monies will be there, and hopefully that will cover everything, and you won't see, hopefully, a substantial increase in the near future, but I'm not going to predict that.
You're not going to predict that there might not be another increase? Is that
No,
what you're
no,
saying?
right now, this is it, okay?
Okay.
We have all the costs, the project's done, as you know, the road's done, the wells are in. All we have to do is fill out the final reports of the DEC, and we're
Okay.
ready to go.
And is this effective with the next billing or the first of the year, or how does that work?
I honestly don't know. I would probably say for the first year, because originally we had estimated $1,200, so the first billing will be $1,400, but that would be the first of the year.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing number 2, Bear Hill local law to establish multifamily workforce housing district. I'll waive the reading of the public notice. Do you want to make any statement to start and let the public ask questions accordingly?
Was there a second?
Okay, if you would. Yeah, just give them a brief update.
Excuse me, I don't think there was a second to open the meeting?
Yeah, Tony, and then you go second.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good. And this is on the workforce housing district itself.
The text amendment, yes.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Richard O'Rourke. I'm with the law firm of Keenan Bean PC, serving as counsel to Covington Properties, LLC. This is, I think, the 4th or 5th town board meeting we've been at where we have discussed this proposal. And what the proposal calls for is the ability to have workforce housing similar to legislation that's been adopted in many municipalities, including down in Westchester County, in the village of Rye Brook and other areas. And the essence and the nature of this is so as to permit there to be provided affordable housing opportunities for full-time employees of the town of Southeast, full-time employees of the school districts serving the town of Southeast, persons aged 55 years and older, persons with disabilities, Putnam County first responders, qualified active volunteer members of the town's fire department, and veterans living in Putnam County. One of the concerns that's been articulated, and in fact someone mentioned it to me at Founders Day this past Sunday, was affordable housing. Who are these people, and how is it that this really is benefiting the community? And I think, just as the board knows, but I think perhaps the public does not, the way this is structured is people are eligible for affordable housing if they have a salary that's 80% of the Putnam County household average income. The statistics we have is that the median household income, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, here in Putnam County is $96,262. When you take 80% of that, that means those that make less than $77,000, because it's 80% of that median income, would qualify for priority for affordable housing. One of the statistics and the data that I've already shared with the town board was that when you take a look at these statistics in terms of salaries for teachers in the Brewster Central School District, every young teacher that's coming out of college and working at the Brewster Central School District, whether with a bachelor's degree or a bachelor's and master's degree, would qualify for this affordable housing. This is an opportunity to make available affordable housing for people that are in those workforce categories I mentioned. That's the essence of this legislation. And the amendment is a text amendment, which of course means that there are eligibilities for that must then be satisfied so as to permit this kind of project to proceed. The legislation calls for and allows for this kind of housing and this priority to occur only in connection with properties that are located in the OP2 district that are bordered or have access through a state, county, or town road adjacent to a residential zone and serviced by an existing centralized water and sewer and fire protection. And they must have a minimum of 25 acres. As the board knows, and perhaps the public does not, using that category or those criteria, only 2 properties presently qualify in the entire town to allow for this kind of affordable housing. Now, obviously, there may be questions regarding it. Mr. Lepler is here, who is involved with the project. Terry Ann Hahn, our landscape architect, is here as well. But I think perhaps the best way to proceed is for the public to have the opportunity to speak.
Okay, Rick, basically, everything you just mentioned was mentioned at a previous public hearing, like you mentioned.
That is correct.
This public hearing was called because there was changes recommended by the planning board. Some of them were they considered to be substantial. So can you address those to the public, because that's what this public hearing is pertaining to?
To be candid with you, as far as, I don't have a complete
Well,
recitation.
one of them was the number of people that would
Occupancy.
be occupancy.
and
Oh,
square
okay, fine.
footage.
That's one.
Yeah,
Possible recreation fees. The
Square footage.
planning board made recommended changes. Do you have that list with you by chance?
Yes, Terry.
Just
Terry does.
touch on those, as that's what the purpose of this meeting is. But thank you for the other, you've informed me.
As Supervisor Hay mentioned, this project and the text change has gone through a number of reviews within the town, including a review by the planning board and recommendation. The recommendations from the planning board were integrated into the text change and included elements such as the definition of number of bedrooms, so that the project was limited to 1 and 2 bedrooms. That was part of the text change. At that time, they also indicated what the maximum number of persons per bedroom unit is, and that was pulled out of the Westchester model housing. It also identifies minimum floor areas for those units, studio, 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms.
Can you identify those numbers for the public? while you're there?
The studio, the minimum floor areas for a studio is 450 square foot with a maximum number of persons of 2. A 1 bedroom is 675 square feet with a maximum persons of 3, and a 2 bedroom of 750 square feet with a maximum persons of 5. And those were tied in and part of the review that occurred with the different public hearings and a number of other public meetings that were part of the seeker review for this text. So those were integrated into the text change and is the part of the reason why there's an additional public hearing. The other element was a discussion regarding payment in lieu of parkland, which was added, and additional text associated with that. And I'm thinking there was one more that I have forgotten. I think there was just some clarification with respect to affordable housing versus affordable priority units, and some clarity in terms of the idea that it's not a separate category of affordable housing, but the identification of priority groups that would then be eligible for affordable housing. So we're not trying to isolate the affordable housing, we're trying to tie it into the idea of a priority group, so that Rick's comments with respect to school children are the targeted group. So, I mean, school teachers, excuse me. Did I get them all?
I think you did.
Okay.
Tony, because Rick spoke, could I ask him a quick question on what, please? Thank you. Because I had someone ask me something on Founder's Day. So, or a lot, but if a prospective tenant is not in one of the priority groups, but would qualify for affordable housing, they would not be permitted. Is that correct, presently?
That is correct.
Okay. But if they
But
were... Yes.
if I may,
Sure.
there are, of course, other market units that are there, but obviously it's market rate.
Right, and I'm talking about strictly affordable right now. So if the person asked me about Section 8 and specifically, so if though a veteran, senior, or disabled, if they qualify, I mean, if they could pay what the affordable housing is, there aren't any other restrictions on them other than the veteran should be a Putnam County resident, correct?
That is correct.
The seniors, do they need to be a Putnam County resident? And the disabled, I don't think they do they?
Persons with disabilities, we did not restrict it. And if I may,
Yes.
one of the reasons for that is that obviously we have a state-of-the-art facility for United Cerebral Palsy that's in the town of Southeast. And this project and housing is in close proximity.
Right.
One of the thoughts was that by allowing people with disabilities that avail themselves of the UCP facility, in some respects, it actually, not only is it more beneficial for them, but it's actually more cost-effective because of the busing that's involved with getting some of these people to the headquarters.
And did we limit, I'm sorry, I should know this and I don't, but we didn't limit seniors, or did we, geographically?
No, we did not.
Okay, so I know some of this priority housing people like because it's your friends and neighbors and people who work in the systems and all of that, but I just want to be clear then that the disabled and the veterans should be residents of Putnam, but the seniors and disabled do not need to be residents of Putnam to apply.
That is correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up in my mind, thank you.
Public comment, please. Come to the mic, just state your name and where you live, please.
Sherry Ingram. I'm here to read a letter from Kathy Croft. Dear Supervisor and Town Board, I attended the last Town Board meeting on September 8th, but unfortunately cannot attend the public hearing this evening due to a prior commitment. For the record, I would like to include my opinion on Barrett Hill regarding recreation fees. When Barrett Hill was originally designated as senior housing, it seemed more appropriate that recreation fees may not have been necessary. Now, however, the proposed development will be open to all age groups and will have more impact on town recreation facilities and programs, especially as children of all ages will be welcome. Since some of the housing will be subsidized, it will also be necessary and appropriate to accommodate some of those of lesser means, and this will financially impact current Southeast taxpayers. In addition, if the occupancy allowances pass, some of the apartments will be able to accommodate up to 5 individuals. Thus, a recreation fee of at least 75% of our traditional fee seems advisable. If the occupancy allowances stand as proposed, I would suggest recreation fees of no less than $5,700 per unit. Thank you for your attention to this important matter. And
Thank you.
Thanks, Sherry.
Anyone else wish to speak?
I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
No.
A second?
Close it, if no one wants to speak.
I know, but I mean, I didn't have a chance to see if
Oh.
anyone even raised their
No,
hand, so.
Nobody did.
All right. Be quicker next time.
My name is Ricky Furman, and I live in the town of Southeast, and I just have a couple of questions. Affordable housing, is all 168 units affordable housing, or
No.
just 50 units?
17 units are affordable.
All right. And if those 17 units are not occupied or not used in a certain period of time, do they stay affordable housing, or are they entitled to be changed to regular market rate?
They are, if I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I believe there's a 99-year some agreement with the town that they will remain that way for 99 years. Is that correct?
Yes.
So the 17 units, whether they're rented out day one, they do not have any restriction of 6 months on the other units they were, but I don't know if that's changed. I'm not sure. But the question you're asking now,
Yeah.
there's a 99-year deed restriction that they must remain affordable during that period of time.
Yeah, it's called an affordable priority unit in the proposed, well, at this point, proposed local law. A priority unit which is subject to a 99-year restriction limiting the sale or rental price initially, and upon resale or re-rental at a price to be determined for the particular project.
And besides the 17, which is set aside for the affordable housing, the 50 that are working class, that is market rate, and
Well, the balance of the 17, so you got 33 units that would be
Yeah.
considered to be market rate.
right.
Now, a question that I don't have the answer to. Did we change it from 6 months? Is there a limitation to time, or is it still 6 months?
Because that's the big question.
Okay. I
know.
Is
And-
it a
and,
rental
um,
apartment?
I
Or
don't
is it-
recall.
I was at the meeting
I
with the
mean,
planning
we're
board.
calling
They-
it a district that is working class, and we're setting it aside for Putnam County workers and all that, and setting the district aside. But in the end, if it doesn't fill up with those kind of workers, it's really a rental apartment, which 17 are being allocated to affordable housing, and the rest is all rental property.
Yes, besides the 17, all the other units in the complex are market rate housing.
And I just would like to know how that benefits the area itself, rather than people that have condos or rentals. In other words, we're just changing something that was senior citizen housing to rental housing. Because in the end, I would say 80% of those apartments, except for the 17 that is a 99-year term, it's become rental apartments. And the floating zone, in other words, this hearing now is after changing the zoning to a floating zone, which Mr. O'Rourke says there's 2 allowed to do this. It's changing the whole comprehensive plan, and we're changing it to rental apartments. And if this doesn't work, what is the next step? Are they allowed to change it again if the rentals don't work? And they can't rent these apartments?
Well, once they build an apartment house or apartment units, they're gonna have to rent them.
But I think, Ricky, I think what he's asking is it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that it went from commercially zoned to senior housing, wasn't built.
Right.
And is now
we're
going to rental. so-
rental apartments, all right?
Yeah.
And they don't have to be built if they don't see the market or the people, if they don't have the customers to rent the apartments, and this doesn't work, they won't build the property. Nobody's gonna spec and build it before they know they have people that are gonna come into it. And is the next step, because it's a floating zone, to change it to another zone in order to
Could I make a
satisfy
clarification?
Mr. Stevens, go ahead.
If I could try to clarify, this property that is being considered, we know as Barrett Hill, it is currently a commercial zone. It's an OP1 zone.
Right.
Currently, it allows by special permit senior housing.
Right.
Because they meet the special permit criteria. They were approved for senior housing
Right.
under the special permit criteria in a commercial zone. What this is doing is creating a whole new zoning overlay that will allow, you call it a floating zone, an overlay zone, or whatever you want to
Right.
call it. It allows for, in that OP1 zone, because it's only allowed in OP1 zones, the possibility of having rental, affordable, and it doesn't even have to be rental. It can be, they can make it condominium, they can make it cooperative, whatever, but it still has to meet those affordability requirements. Do you understand?
Right.
So what we're doing right now, at this stage, really has
setting it
nothing to
aside.
do with Barrett Hill. Once this text change is approved, if it's approved, then the next item would be to map the floating zone to that particular piece of property.
Right.
Do you understand? So it's a two-step process, which seems to have taken maybe 15 steps to get here, but the concept is that property will always remain zoned OP1 until it's mapped for this workforce affordable housing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tony, the one thing that, if Ashley might be able to answer, is when I was at the planning board meeting, which was the meeting that came up with this document about the occupancy and all, they did discuss a longer time period than 6 months for marketing, and I thought that had been agreed on, that 6 months wasn't enough. What did I miss? And
So since that time, the text has changed. The initial draft of the local law was written, and it made it appear that if the units were not rented within 6 months, that they would revert to being market rate housing open to the general public. That text has since been revised so that 6 months expiration is no longer within the code. The only reference to 6 months within the proposed local law at this time is the reference to the cost of a for sale unit, if they do go the for sale route, to being based on the last 6 months of sales. For the affordable unit, it would be 90% of the last 6 months of sales prices.
But I thought the priority units, if they don't sell to the priority group within 6 months,
Not the priority.
I mean, not sell, but if they don't rent, I thought the planning board had a lot of questions on that.
They did, and
Okay.
that's no long, and that was a question,
Yes.
but that language is no longer in
So it's no
the
longer
local law.
applicable? Okay.
That's it, it's
So,
over.
so that the 6 months has been removed?
It's been removed from the proposed local law. I don't know if that language still appears in the community benefits agreement, but that's something that this board has more time to look at.
Okay.
And,
Thank you, Ashley.
John Lord, I'm a resident of Sound Southeast. If the zoning change goes through, or if this is adopted, and and it's mapped for Barrett Hill, and they start to build, and things don't sell, and we have a portion of the project built, does that now restrict them to only having that use for the property? I mean, if they build one, I think they were going to be building in
8
phases.
sections.
And they built one phase and it just wasn't selling.
Renting in this.
Or renting. What would happen then if they decided that it wasn't working out, and they decide that they're not going to build anymore? Would they then be able to come back and rezone for other uses for the balance of the property?
Will, can you help on that question?
Well, it's an interesting question, and
Thanks.
I don't know that it conjures an easy response. Generally, when a development is commenced and they do it in phases, which I believe this particular developer would like to do it in phases, they certainly, each phase is built out and they look to see what the market conditions are before they build the next phase. Availability of money, a number of different factors come into play. Certainly in a perfect world, they will build out all 8 phases, and it'll be what it was that they intended it to be. Now, for some reason, the bottom falls out of the market, as it's been known to do. It's hard to interpret. It's hard to anticipate what could or could not happen as they look at what is the best way to deal with the property, the project that they've got in front of them. Certainly, they're going to have investors that have a lot of their money tied into this, and they're going to look to see what's most advantageous at that particular time in the future. Whether they could come back and rezone it, conceivably, they could. I mean, if there's a petition that seeks to rezone a piece of property, they could do that. Again, it's a legislative act by a board that would probably be something of a time-consuming effort, costly, and would be reviewed very carefully, as this project is being reviewed very carefully. I don't know if that answers your question, John, but again, it's hard to have a crystal ball.
No, it's a hypothetical, but it also wonders, how well thought out it is, or what other options could be pursued at another time should this not work out for the applicant. Another question would be, if they're building out in phases, this is probably more easily answered. Would the affordable housing be a percentage of the first phase? Would that be, if it's 17, would the first phase have?
I think that has been anticipated, and maybe one of the developers' representatives could answer that.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Sure. Thank you.
Actually, the text was modified to indicate that, if I can, on one of these sections here, it actually says that the affordable units are spread out throughout the project and through the individual buildings. So it's actually within the text now that would indicate that that circumstance would not occur. So that there would be units.
How does it exactly work then? Say phase 1.
Yeah, well, if phase 1 is X percentage of the whole, then that would result, let's say, it'd be 2 affordable units in each building, let's say. Let's use that as an example. So that's how it would break out. So each phase would have the pro-rata share of the affordable units. So you don't have a concentration.
Right.
Now, again, I don't have the map in front of me this evening, but each phase, there's going to be like a bedroom, a studio, and a 2-bedroom? I mean,
It's all ones
they
and
vary?
two. At the moment, they're all ones and twos. Right now, we're playing with the clay to find out sort of what the configuration will be on each floor so that it's even. The buildings are modular. So that's what we're looking at the moment. So we have a number of 1-bedrooms and a number of 2-bedrooms, and we're just figuring out how it's going to go in the inside. So there could be a 1-bedroom affordable, a 2-bedroom affordable. It will be according to each individual building.
And if you got to six, let's say 6 people apply to an 8-unit, is there 8 2-unit, is that what we're doing? How many to per each unit?
In each building?
In each unit? Well, each phase, so to speak.
Let's call it 20 units.
20 units, okay. And you only have to have, no.
Well,
Two
at that
per-
point, you'd
two
have
per
about,
unit,
you'd have
okay.
2, yeah,
So there's plenty of time to get it, whether it's a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom.
correct.
And let's say all market rate went first and not the affordable, then you would either just reserve a 1
Right.
and a 2-bedroom, and they'd have to take whatever you got at the time.
Right.
Okay. You have anything more?
And the affordable units, are they going to be the 1-bedrooms or 2-bedrooms, or as the need? As the need came up, okay. And is there now an idea of what an affordable 1-bedroom would be?
Yes,
for-
price-wise?
Yeah, for the.
$14.44 for the 1-bedroom affordable, and $17.33 for affordable for a 2-bedroom.
And market rate would be a lot higher.
I think it's, I don't have the exact
Wow,
number, it's
10%.
$2,100
That's a lot of
and
money.
$1,700?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, okay. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, Peter Bell. One, I'd just like to clarify something and then make a statement about something else. Let's take the first unit, the first phase is 20 units, and 2 of them need to be affordable. I think that the audience and I am a little confused. There's not 2 designated units that are affordable, just that 2 units out of those 20 need to be affordable.
Yes.
Okay, so in other words, unit 1 doesn't stay affordable for 99 years.
If it's been designated as the person rents it, it is.
If that person stays in it for 99 years.
No, not them, whoever comes in, the next
Well,
person comes in has to be affordable.
No.
Oh, see, that's where the
it's
confusion
different.
is.
It's different.
It's 2 within that phase have to be affordable, not that specific unit.
But, okay, if that's the case then, if a person no one else moves out, and that's the only one they have available,
Point that was raised, it's a 99-year.
You need to use the mic.
It's a 99-year deed restriction. So as another unit may come on the market, and it may be less than 10 years, it may be more, you're always going to have that percentage of affordable units. It may be a 1. We're not doing individual units, i.e. that have a designation affordable. It's an integrated, it's seamless. So if someone comes in, they're a school teacher, they're looking at a 1-bedroom, they qualify, that's affordable. If we're building a first phase and say it's 40 units, and you're gonna have 4 units. If we have a first responder, they have a young child, they want a 2-bedroom unit, they qualify, that's affordable. And we have to maintain that number of units for a 99-year restriction. One of the compelling reasons is if you have a person with a disability, or I'll say a veteran that has limited physical function, they're going to want to be on a first level. They're also going to very possibly need structural and mechanical alterations to their unit to make their unit viable for them. And there are programs to do that. So it may not be the same unit, but we're going to be restricted to having those 17 units as affordable.
And Harold, as I understand it, what is, I think, something good about this is that all units are the same and that there aren't upgrades. I mean, everything is identical, so if you're in affordable, it's the same as being any other unit. It's not, they're not differences of any sort, correct?
The answer is to your question is you interpret it correctly. With the exception of maybe one building that has 2 less units just on size.
Right.
The buildings are a repeat of the same units, the same mix, the same floor plan.
Right.
there is no designation, this is affordable or this is for handicap. That would be defeating the whole premise.
Because I know priority units in some towns, for example, have less expensive appliances and things like that, and that would not be the case here either.
We wouldn't do that.
Okay.
And you shouldn't allow us to do that on any level.
And there would be no restriction that the affordable people can't use the pool or anything like that?
There's no pour door.
There's no, right, I know that's what, in New York City, a lot of these buildings are built and there's a pour door where the affordable people can't go
The
in the main door.
answer to your question is whether it's the amenities or any of the facilities have to be open and
Exactly.
equal access to.
Right, so there'll be no restrictions,
all
there'll be
people.
no discrimination against the,
Absolutely correct.
okay.
I own a real estate company in town, and they did an analysis of the rents in the town of Southeast over the last year. And for 2-bedroom units, the price went, say in Fieldstone Pond or Reed Farm or one of the other condominium projects, anywhere from $2,200 a month to $2,500 a month. So that these 2-bedroom units are now $1,900 a month, which is in essence below the market rate. When you apply the affordability to that, and you drop the one down to 16 and change or whatever that number was, it really does make it affordable. And one of the things that over the years that I've tried to help people with are first responders in New York City. First responders in New York City, policemen, firemen, EMS, are not allowed to live in counties above Putnam County. So they can't live in Dutchess County. I don't think they can live in Orange County. So what this does, there are a lot of first responders for New York City living in this area. It will give them an affordable, even at market rate, an affordable place to rent a new 2-bedroom apartment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Regano, I live off of Maplewood.
Sir, I can't hear you. Can you speak in the?
Ed Regano, I live off of Maplewood Drive, not far from where this is being proposed. You mentioned that the units were comparable to something down in Lower Westchester, Rybrook or whatever. Now, the utilities down there, sewer, water, all the utilities are all underground. This proposed building or buildings, those facilities are all going to be coming from where?
They currently service Fieldstone Pond, Mount Evo. They'll be the same service,
And
water and sewer.
And these units, the studies have been done. This is going to be something that they're going to be able to do. It's going to be all of these sewer and water can accommodate all of them.
It actually still has to go through a planning review to a degree, correct, Ashley? So, you know, there may be concerns because of occupancy. If
Right.
you're allowed to have 5 in a 2-bedroom, the occupancy could be extremely high. It probably won't be. It's estimated to be 300 and some odd. It could be as high if it was maxed out as 7. So that is something the planning board, because it was for senior housing before, and seniors are known to use less utilities.
Right.
So it's a good question.
Right, there's only going to be 1 or 2 seniors in a place, and not a family. So, you're going to decide on doing something without actually knowing whether or not you're going to be able to accommodate all of these people with these utilities?
Mr. Ork, would you come up?
Perhaps I can help you. It's a good question. The important thing here is that this is the text change. That doesn't mean it's over. What that then means, of course, is that the property has to be mapped. You have to go through a site plan approval, which means that you have to go before the planning board. That means that the centralized water and sewer requirement, just because it's required doesn't mean it's approved. You have to go through the health department. You have to go through the New York State Department of Health, as well as Putnam County Department of Health, to make sure that the utilities can properly service the property and the anticipated population. So all of that has to occur. We're nowhere near that, and that also will require not only site plan approval from the planning board, but also a special permit grant from the town board as well. So,
Now, at this
Hope that
stage, of the-
Right.
Rick, at this stage of the game, though, you would not be, you must have done some kind of a study to accommodate what you're proposing.
well, yes, obviously with regard to the existing wastewater treatment plant, there's a speedies permit, so we know what the limitations are, what the requirements are to meet all state, local standards in terms of performance, and so too with water. We're not going anywhere without that. Obviously, our information and the information we have with respect to the approvals leads us to the conclusion that there is not a problem here, that there are sufficient utilities, they're in place, we have the permits, and it's just merely a matter of continuing them on to this project.
One quick question, is this the last parcel available up at Mount Eagle?
Yes.
Go ahead again, sir.
Okay.
That's it, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Before you speak again, sir, is there anyone that has not spoke that wants to be heard? Okay, last call.
Ricky Furman. One question on the 17 apartments set aside for affordable housing. Is that proportional, 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, of all the housing being built in that, or is it all 17 1-bedroom?
No, I think we answered that before. It varies.
But is it going to be proportional is a good question. Is it,
So you want to know if it's like 6 of one, and of the 17 units, it's going to be 8 and 7, or 8
because there are
8 and 9?
104 2-bedrooms, correct? And then the rest are 1-bedrooms. So I don't, that they can answer if it's going to be proportional to that. I can't answer.
The answer to respond.
Hang on, this is a good question. I don't think we've talked about this or defined it. It'll be defined in the community benefits agreement. Let me give some thought to how the buildings are gonna work out, and we can figure that out. But that's not a critical component to the text change, but we'll keep that in mind, because it doesn't come up in the text change. That is part of the community benefits agreement, but that's a good question.
Okay. Seeing no other speakers, make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next one is 3, Barrett Hill, local law to map the multi-force housing district. Mr. Rourke, would you like to touch on the mapping? Is there a second?
I second.
Explain to the public what the mapping is so they
Okay,
can
all right, let me,
address the questions accordingly.
all right. What is proposed by way of this proposal is something that, while new to the town of Southeast, it's a matter of zoning process and procedure that's been in place for many years in many communities. And essentially what happens is this. If in fact you have an overlay zone or you have a floating zone, what then happens, the property owner can apply for that property to be mapped for this floating zone. So in other words, it's floating around in the town, but it needs to be applied to a specific piece of property. So what then happens is, once you know what the requirements are in regard to meeting the floating zone, there then is the second step to it, which of course is the actual mapping of the property. Now, the property that is at issue for the mapping, and we've talked about it, is the property in Mount Ebo. And what it is, it's a 29-acre parcel that is located in OP2 zone. It was previously reviewed and approved for senior housing, and essentially what is being proposed by way of this mapping is on that property to place structures that would allow for the formation of housing for workforce housing for the very categories we talked about before. My understanding is that this will result in less site disturbance than what was approved previously in terms of the disturbance of the area for the senior housing, which was previously approved. And so that's essentially what it is. Now, as far as the mapping is concerned, there are certain requirements that must be met preliminarily, and that's what we talked about previously, and that's this, that the property, to qualify for eligibility, let's say, for the mapping of the floating zone onto a particular property, it must be a parcel of property that's located in the OP2 zoning district. It must also be located on a state, county, town, road, and it must be adjacent to a residential zone, so it's not much of a dramatic change. And it must be serviced by an existing central water and sewer and fire protection, and it must have a minimum of 25 acres. The parcel in question meets all of those criteria. The issue is whether, in fact, the map may be amended so as to allow for this district on this property. Thank you. That's the explanation.
Questions from the public, if any, on the map portion?
Sherry Ingram, out Southeast. Mr. O'Rourke indicated that there were 2 properties that could be in a floating zone, and what is the other property?
Rick, would you please come up?
Sure.
Just repeat the question in a sense so that everyone can hear it again.
All right,
No,
the
let us
question
public,
is...
'cause they may not have heard it. Okay, go
Right,
ahead.
the question, I certainly don't want to misstate it, but my understanding of the question is that are there or is there any other property located within the town of Southeast that would qualify for the implementation of this floating zone onto that other property? The answer to that is yes. My understanding is there is one other property that would qualify for this, and it's in Terravest Corporate Park.
And there's a current project plan for that already? 60
I have
units,
not
okay?
at all been involved with that project, and I'd have to defer to Terry or to Mr. Lepler.
There is no application for the mapping of this particular, in front of the board in any fashion. The project, which is known as Terravest Phase 3, is an approved senior housing, single-family home, single housing project.
60 units, was it?
It's 60 units, and they're all 3-bedroom units, therefore they would not, as they are configured now, they would not qualify.
That's correct. You'd have to do some significant changes to that overall project.
You could, technically,
I mean,
if-
you could, but there's no application to
Right.
map this, Terravest project under this floating zone, just so that there's no questions.
At this point.
However, what had to occur is that as part of a SEQA review, which this board engaged in, we were required to identify all the potential properties for this, consider what that would mean, and this board considered all the environmental impacts associated with both of those properties, not just the one. There is only an application at this time to map the Mount Ebo Lot 6 or Barrett Hill property.
Does that answer your question, ma'am? Thank you.
John Lord. So if the mapping of the Barrett Hill property is approved, and then the Terravest people come to have that property mapped for the same floating zone, would that then result in the town having another large parcel of rentals in the town? And what could that do to the school population? And should the town not grant them permission to apply for that floating zone, would the town be subject to litigation?
Will?
Well, it's a good question, John, as usual. The process is a legislative process, which accords the town board, being the legislative body, a great deal of discretion. That's my understanding of the law. Whether or not we would be subjected to litigation, of course,
Always can be. Yeah.
anybody that is not, that becomes aggrieved by a determination of any board is subject to litigation. That's the honest answer. Whether it would be successful or not is a roll of the dice sometimes, but as I said in my opening comments, it is a discretionary function of the legislative body, so the standards of arbitrary and capricious don't necessarily apply. I think that's an accurate analysis in the most basic sense.
Okay, then that's the second one, but could the TerraVest property owners, developers, come to the town board and look for that, the zoning, or look for their property to be mapped in the same way that the Barrett Hill group is?
They could, because as it was pointed out by their counsel, that property in TerraVest does meet the basic criteria that is required to even consider. It has enough acreage, it's got accessibility to central water and sewer, it is adjacent to a residential zone.
It meets all the criteria, okay.
And these are the only two parcels in the
Right.
town of Southeast that meet the criteria that is being proposed,
Okay,
just so
so-
you know.
I oppose the mapping, and I agreed with all your comments at the August 18th meeting that I wasn't able to attend. Sorry, but thank you, Tony. Thank you, Lynn.
Can I say one thing? And correct me if I'm wrong, but in TerraVest, the 3 bedrooms, which would not qualify as were approved because they're 3 bedrooms rather than 1 or 2, but were they about 1,800 square feet? Were they about 1,800 square feet?
That is correct.
Okay, so technically, and I'm not saying you're going to do this, but just looking forward as we should as a town board, they could be duplexes. They would meet the criteria in here as far as square footage for a 1 bedroom and a 2 with a 2 bedroom over, 2 bedrooms, because those only have to be 750 square feet, correct?
You have a minimum threshold.
Could you just mind coming to the mic?
Yeah,
and
I'm
answer
sorry.
those?
I think you, I just, because people have been asking about TerraVest, and I think it's really important that we know, I mean, no one's applying for anything right now, and we know that, but this, and people have been concerned a little bit about school children and occupancy. So what I'm saying is it is possible to have the building, to leave the footprint as is, have the buildings as they are, whether you switch the garages to something else, which could be, add square footage. You could technically do, it would be 900 feet per floor, roughly, and you only need 750 square feet now for a 2-bedroom, and only, what's it, 670, I don't have it right in front of me. I think it's 675, yeah, 675.
Again, what would, you would have to go through in terms of the number of units. There are 60 footprints. If you made each one of them a duplex, then you're going to exceed some of the other criteria that's inside of all of this. We could speculate sort of into oblivion, but there is no, it could be retrofitted, but it might end up with only 30 footprints instead of 60 footprints. There's a lot of discretion. Those are the kinds of questions that people would ask.
Right,
and whether or not it was cost effective to do that at this particular location is a totally different kind of economics than what we're talking about at Barrett Hill. So those are parts of the
as would be the
discussion.
sewer and water and all that.
Yeah, I mean, you're
No, I
talking
know.
about when the change.
I'm not giving you any ideas, am I?
No, because quite honestly, when the local law, the proposed local law changed to limit to 1 and 2 bedrooms.
Right.
That is a significant economic consideration in terms of what would happen on a different property. There's a reason why the TerraVest projects were 3 bedrooms, because there was a different product, a different market, a whole different scenario that was occurred.
They were
So
detached
they
houses.
They don't directly translate into anything that would be necessarily would be consistent with what it is that occurred here in these discussions.
Occurred in the Barrett Hill discussions.
In the Barrett Hill discussions. So it's not,
It opens it up to the same housing, but you would not necessarily use the same footprint.
Yeah, it would
obviously.
be, it'd be a totally different product. You're basically talking about probably starting from scratch. So it's not a simple thing, it's not an easy thing. I mean, if you think about, it's been 2 years in the discussion on Barrett Hill. Terravest is a different entity, so.
And the one other thing I just wanted to clear up that Peter Bell mentioned, and Ashley could help me with this if I'm wrong, because he mentioned firefighters and people from the city, as this is the last county, the furthest county where they can live. But if I read it correctly, it was really for southeast fire, and it would not be applicable.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
Putnam County First Responders is how this code is written.
Okay.
Or drafted.
So they okay, so they could rent there, it just, they would
could
not be
rent
part of the
there,
priority.
They would not be part of the priority
And they wouldn't
unit.
be part of the affordable.
But there are a number of New York City firemen that are volunteer firemen in Brewster,
Right.
so they would be.
So
eligible
as, that would
as-
qualify
that
them for the
part, but
priority
not
units,
the New York
as well
City
as the
aspect of it.
affordable if they met the income requirement.
Okay, I just wanted to clear that up, so thank you.
Any questions more from the public on mapping?
And I just wanted to, if anyone wants to come up, but I know it was mentioned a couple of times about the school children and population of the schools. We reached out to the school district. They were CC'd, they were given the report that was done, and they have not weighed in at all. So, I just think that's something that's important. There are apparently 200 less kids in the school district this year than 2 years ago. But we never heard anything. They never expressed any concerns to us. So I just think that's important for everyone to realize.
I don't think the schools would reply, because schools are there to educate children. If you bring them to the system, they'll educate them. You just gotta pay for them.
I think, though, that they would have come or made a comment if they thought that the quality of whatever education they were giving the children would be compromised because of an influx
Well,
that they weren't, that they didn't think was going to be taken care of.
Well, I can say, after spending about 20 years, as most of you know, going to planning board meetings, that I've never heard of the school district weighing in on any development, and that includes developments of 143 houses, developments of 104 houses. So it is not surprising to me at all that the school district did not weigh in on this.
But I know in other communities they do.
They
There was an
might,
article
yes.
in New Rochelle about some residential project, and the New Rochelle School Board
Right.
District did weigh in saying that this would be problematic if this was done, but.
Right.
just
I
to
think
get
it could be very helpful, but they haven't, and and it has been their history not to, so, just so the public knows that has not been the case.
But I agree with Liz. I think if it was, borderline, or if they're bulging at the seams, I think that they would have the responsibility to chirp in and let us know that they have concerns.
You would think that, but they have not in the past, so.
Michelle,
That's-
is there a motion on the table to close the public hearing?
Not yet, no.
Okay, I make the motion.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Will, I have a procedural question I'm gonna have to ask at this point in time. We all know that there's rules governing our procedures here on the town board. Nothing prevents something going from a public hearing directly to a vote this evening. And under special hearings, it does state, the town board may vote on any public hearing matter for which all speakers have been accommodated, provided that no one speaks against the subject matter of the public hearing. If someone speaks against the subject matter of the public hearing, all hearing decisions shall be delayed until the next regular or special meeting of the board, or no less than 6 days, whichever is more, to afford sufficient time to allow public comment to be submitted and evaluated. Does that apply here this evening?
Is that about a special meeting or a regular
No,
meeting?
no, public, when you,
When you have the public hearing, but does it apply as far as a special meeting
This
or a
is
regular
not a
meeting?
special meeting.
I know it's not.
Anything to do with a public hearing. Now, if we require, let him, and
Well, I
then,
think there's certainly some qualitative determinations the board's got to make. I mean, I've listened to what everybody just said. It sounded like there were a lot more questions than there were any statements in opposition to the proposals.
Okay.
So I guess you're going to have to make a determination amongst yourselves as to whether you felt that there was a significant opposition voiced that would require it to be put over until the next meeting.
Okay, I don't believe we heard opposition.
I think
Comment.
John Lord specifically said, I would disagree, just on the mapping, that he was not in favor of the mapping.
I think
Now, I
if you
could be
would go
wrong
back
on
to the
that.
record, he said, I'm not in favor of it for the reasons you said in the last meeting, Mr. A.
Right.
The last meeting was before this particular, these two items came before this board.
Okay,
And the reality is, we've been talking about this project for 2 years, and there's been numerous other public hearings. It's not like this is the first time it's discussed.
again, that's not the question. The question, I believe, has been addressed. It's on the agenda number 6 and 7, and we'll vote on it this evening.
Right, and then just so you know, the next public hearing, Guardian Veterinarian Management LLC, is the first time we're discussing it. I don't really know anything about the project, because it's never been before the town board before, but you have it down
Well,
to
because
vote
that's-
on it
but
as
that's-
resolution number 8,
But that is our rules.
but so it's the same thing.
I try to treat the next applicant the same as this applicant. And if we didn't do that, I think that'd be quite unfair.
Right,
so-
and I'm not
And that's-
disagreeing with you.
And
but
that's, so the question will be, if anyone has anything negative to say about,
So if somebody has something negative to say about Guardian Veterinarian.
we will not
then
vote
we
on it
will.
this evening.
Okay. But I'm
That's,
just, as
that's our
far
rules.
as,
I mean, normally it's under the work session cannot go directly to a voting session unless it's approved by unanimous.
but I'm just saying
vote.
that Barrett Hill's been vetted a lot more thoroughly than Guardian Veterinarian.
So if you want to say.
No, I don't want to,
No,
slow
but I'm-
it down. I
No.
don't want,
That's not the point. The point is, I would have found it very disingenuous this evening to have someone come in for a public hearing with a special permit and not afford them the same as another applicant. That's the
No, and
only
I-
reason it's there this
and I-
evening. And
okay,
based on
that's-
whatever said at the public hearing, if no one comes up to speak, or if you make a comment, then I would ask the town attorney the same thing.
everyone's got to be treated equally. That's
Okay,
fine.
so, public hearing number 4, Garden Veterinary Management LLC, it's a special permit. I will read the public notice. Please take notice that the town board of the town of Southeast shall hold the public hearing on September 22nd at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as interested parties may be heard at Town Hall, 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, to consider the application of Guardian Veterinary Specialist, owner/tenant of premises located at 4 Hardscrabble Heights, tax map number 78.-2-83, which seeks a special permit to allow an emergency animal hospital be established in the subject premises in an OP1 zoning district. All persons interested in subjection matter hereof will be given an opportunity to be heard at this time. I move to open the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jamie, would you like to give an update to the board, and I'll pass out the maps that were distributed. You can have 2 down that way, and Liz and I will share.
Good evening. My name is Jamie LaJudas from Insight Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. I'm here on behalf of the Guardian Veterinary Specialist for Mr. Jason Berg, who's also present. For those of you who don't know where the property is, it's on 4 Hardscrabble Heights, just off of Fields Lane. It's right at the corner. The first property on the right as you turn on Hardscrabble Heights. There is an existing building on site, a 2-story metal building with associated parking, various landscaping on site. There is an existing well and an existing septic. The project before you is for a special permit for an animal hospital. Basically, the intent is for an emergency animal hospital, basically by referrals and emergencies only. The Guardian Veterinary Specialist will occupy the upper floor of the existing building, so you'll have waiting rooms, operating rooms, research laboratories, and customer relation areas in that floor. The second floor, the lower floor, will be storage and basically warehouse space, basically for their supply areas. Essentially, services provided with the hospital will include surgery, neurology, dermatology, dentistry, basically your normal veterinary hospital techniques and services. There are additional procedures such as fracture repair, brain surgery, and endoscopy, and many more that the hospital will provide. The facility is a 24-hour-a-day facility. There are 3 shifts with employees that will be from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m., 4 p.m. to 12 a.m., 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. Their busiest time will be 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. There will be anywhere from 25 to 30 employees within the hospital, and normally 15 to 20 clients during this busy time. Overnight, there will not be as many. There'll be approximately 3 to 4 employees at the hospital. The animals themselves, a majority of them using the facility are obviously ill, so they will be more on the quieter side. All animals are housed inside. Dogs, if they are able, will be walked outside on leashes. The assistants and nurses are obviously their intent is to keep the facility extremely clean, as this is a hospital, so they'll be cleaning fecal matter and that type of materials up very frequently and often. As many of you know, there are no emergency hospitals for animals in this area or within Putnam County. Rather, there are 2 in Westchester, 1 in Yonkers, and 1 in Cantona. So having this facility in Putnam will be a great advantage to many pet owners. Also will bring a nice monetary value to the community for those that drop off their pets for a couple hours here or there, have the opportunity to drop them off, go and shop or dine in the local areas. The project itself, as far as site improvements, there are not many. As the building itself will be renovated internally, there is 3 new light poles that are proposed, with 1 new fixture in the back parking lot here. There is a new handicap ramp that is proposed just to gain access for ADA into the existing building. And the existing parking in the upper lot will be restriped. I believe that is the project. We don't anticipate any adverse impacts to the neighbors or any adjoining properties with this project. And obviously with it being a hospital, we do anticipate a little bit more of vehicular traffic than what was there previously, but we don't think that it will impact the community at any great extent.
Jamie, where's the nearest similar facility? Is there any in Putnam County, or do you have to go into Connecticut for the nearest one?
I don't believe there are any in Putnam County. I think Danbury, I believe, is the next closest.
Yeah, Newtown, because I know I brought my dog to Newtown, because it's either, I think Newtown and Bedford were the 2 alternatives I had.
Yeah, and there's 1 in Yonkers as well.
Okay. Okay.
And what type of animals you gonna cater to? Or cats, dogs?
I believe it's dogs and cats for the majority. I think Jason can attest to that.
Is there any intention to have any kind of incineration device for animals that don't make it?
I don't know. Hold on one sec.
Hi, Jason Berg. I'm a veterinary neurologist. To answer that specific question is no. There's services that come and pick up the pets and do cremations. 1 in Hartsdale. It's probably the closest one. I don't know if there's any input.
No.
No.
So actually, to just give a quick overview on my side of it, to explain it a little better, is that all the general practitioners, great practitioners, just like in human medicine, those specialists, cardiologists, neurologists, dermatologists. So cases that they can't handle, they don't know the diagnostics for, they don't know the training for, they refer to me. Like currently, I'm in Yonkers. I started that practice there. I'm going to be leaving that and opening the one here. And again, we have veterinarians from in there over a 50-mile radius refer the clients in. Most of our employees are local. And like she was saying, they have to drop them off for an MRI or a surgery, a lot of people stay local. It's quiet. Nobody's coming in with ambulances, I always tell everybody. And the reason we're open 24 hours is obviously there are emergencies, but also we have hospitalized patients who need to be monitored with doctors as well.
Okay, anyone from the board, questions?
This is an existing building, correct?
Correct.
Do you have to go in front of the ARB, do you know?
Yes, we did last night, actually.
Oh, last
Yes.
night, okay.
We received a positive referral back to the planning board.
And you received positive to come to the town board, which is why you're here this evening.
I'm sorry, say that again, Tony?
That they were forwarded to us for the special permit.
Yes, from the planning board.
And you don't anticipate any parking problems, then? You think you do have enough as far as parking spaces?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have 61 spaces on site. We have 50 spaces up on top that are allocated for this particular use, and then in the event that there's needed extra space, there's additional spaces down below for the warehouse space.
Okay, and no runs, correct?
No runs.
Okay, and those are not planned for the future, correct? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, Lynn. I had asked runs, outdoor, no outdoor runs. Got it. I want to make sure. Thank you. No
Anyone from the public have any questions? Seeing none, I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Does the board want to entertain this evening?
Pardon?
Shall the board entertain this evening?
Well, that's going to be in the regular meeting, right?
Yes. No, the regular meeting, it goes, yeah, as a resolution.
Yeah, I know, I'll entertain it.
Okay,
I can't speak for everybody.
fine. So if you want to stick around, you can find out this evening.
We shall. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I make a motion to go into the work session portion of the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first is a discussion on peddling and solicitation. Bob, you started the first email on this over the week, so would you like to discuss this?
This is the,
Yeah. Peddling, soliciting people, I'm going to do it.
yeah, there's, just want to let everyone know in Southeast there is an ordinance. You can't go door to door selling anything.
Chapter 103 to be exact.
Thank you. The only exception is, well, religious purposes, Jehovah's Witnesses, et cetera, and political purposes. You can go door to door. But there's been some issues in Orford Gage Road last week where there's some teenagers going around selling magazine subscriptions. A lot of these teenagers are from the South. A lot of them are runaways. They're dropped off here, and someone in a van or whatever, and they go around door to door. You know, they may go through mailboxes, get your name, then go to the neighbor's house and say, oh, well, I'm friends with John Brown next door, and he told me to come here. So just be very alert. Don't buy anything from these people. You'll probably never get the magazines anyway. And a lot of times they're casing your house, and there was some burglaries up on Milltown Road at the same time these people were in the general area. Tools were stolen from someone's house. So we did reach out to the sheriff's department. They are aware of it. And apparently they did, I'm waiting for a reply from the undersheriff, but they did have contact apparently with one of the magazine sellers. And I don't know if they gave him a summons or whatever. I'm waiting to find out. But, and there has been, like I said, burglaries at the same time they've been around. So just want everyone to be cautious.
Are you willing to take the lead to see what kind of communications the sheriff's department and the state police can take to notify? I don't know how they do it. There's many
Right, I mean, that was, you know, the sheriff's department does have some neighborhood watch groups set up. Milltown Road is a very active one. However,
Peaceable Hill.
Peaceable Hill is active too, but.
Brewster Heights.
There's numerous ones. So is there going to be an
Well,
attempt?
yeah, I mean, we need the sheriff's department to, you know, when I was a police officer in Westchester, if we had a rash of burglaries or car larcenies, we would, you know, let people know via email. People could sign up to our website and get notifications. That doesn't really seem to be happening up here. I know there was a burglary on Gage Road during the summer. I didn't know anything about it, and you know, people were asking me about it. You know, so there needs to be a little bit better communication. So hopefully that's something we can help work with the sheriff's department and the state police. The problem with the state police is they're not always out of the Brewster Barracks, so they may be coming from the Somers Barracks to get here, and, so sometimes I think the communication is kind of lacking between the sheriff's department and the state police, so hopefully that can be improved too.
So hopefully I can state unanimously that we will assign Bob to do that.
Sure.
All in favor?
You gotta put in Bob in favor.
It's Bob's baby.
Show me down the river.
Okay. Now make a motion, go to the regular meeting portion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, waive the reading of the correspondence.
Second.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Number 2 is approval of the voucher list, $1,792,911.77. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
3, setting of meeting dates and public hearings. All meetings will be held at 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, at 7 p.m. unless otherwise noted. Thursday, October 6th, 2016. Thursday, October 20th, 2016. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Waive the reading of the budget transfers. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Number 5, resolution adopting local law amending Town Code Chapter 131, Vehicles and Traffic. Now therefore be resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Southeast hereby adopts local law number 5 of 2016 pursuant to Municipal Home Rule, amending Chapter 131, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 4, Commuter Parking, Section 131-20, parking prohibited, certain hours of the Town Code to remove the prohibition on parking in commuter lots between the hours of 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. And be further resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to A, enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and the code book of the town of Southeast, and B, give due notice of the adoption of said local law by filing such with the Secretary of State of New York within the time required by law. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next. It's a resolution adopting local law amending the zoning map of Barrett Hill.
No, this would be the text amendment, Tony.
Wait. Hang on. The zone- Sorry, I read number 6, okay? Just go back. Adopting local law amending Town Code, Chapter 138 zoning, which is the text amendment. So I move for discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
I just have a couple of questions. The resolution itself points out the fact that, that there was a public hearing held tonight. During the course of this matter, there were other public hearings. Should that also be noticed?
I don't think it necessary for the record. I mean, the fact of the matter is this public hearing was on the most recent amended version of this proposed local law.
Yeah, and I think everyone spoke about this most recent version, even though the last time when we had said it, it had to do with the fact that there had been planning board recommendations. But I think the public comment tonight was clearly for the text amendment itself.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Tony at one
Well-
point had mentioned this public hearing was because of the planning board modifications, but I saw it as more of a public hearing as to the entire local law.
And
So I
it
just,
is. Technically, it is.
It is.
Right.
But the reason I said that is there was what they consider substantial changes from the last public hearing to
Right.
this one, which was the purpose of it. But overall, yes, it covers the entire.
right, I just wanted to correct it, because when you had said it was, at one point you had mentioned about the planning board recommendations and the changes, that my belief is that the public comment tonight was really about the text of that local law. It went
True,
far
but
beyond
it
that.
really makes no, it's inconsequential for the legislative history, if you will, of what we're adopting, whether we had prior public, we could have 15 public hearings. But in order to follow the requirements of the municipal home rule law, you have to have a public hearing on the most recent draft that has been presented to you and sat on your desk for, a period of time.
All right, so then citing one night is fine. And then the other thing is, which text change because it's not annexed, which
Option
change?
2 is not?
It was option 2, but it's not annexed here. I just wanted to know, because Ashley, the last time we were here, the day after the meeting, had sent 2 different laws. So I don't know which law is going to
It
be.
should be the one that on the upper left-hand corner says Barrett Hill zoning text amendment, and on the bottom it says draft, and with a date of September 9th, 2016.
Okay, when you had sent that to us, just to make sure, I have September 9th at 11:17 a.m. I have, that email had the number 1 box, had the Barrett Hill zoning map amendment 9916. The middle box had Barrett Hill zoning text amendment 9916, and the next box said the same exact thing. So maybe it was repeated twice?
So there were 3 attachments to that email?
Correct.
One was the clean version of the local
Got it.
law, one was the
Okay.
redlined, and the other one was the zoning map amendment local law,
Very good.
which was just one.
So it's
version.
going to be obviously the clean, not the red line?
Yes.
Gotcha, okay. All right, and do we need to annex it to the resolution?
Actually, there's going to be there's a whole different form.
Great,
That
no
is
problem.
filed with the Secretary of State, which contains the text, which
Okay.
I'll put together probably tonight.
Very good, thank you.
And just for the record, if the planning board had not made any substantive change to the plan, we would not have to be having the second public hearing this evening.
Correct.
Okay, so, discussion. Liz? Bob, Edwin, Lynn?
I will not be voting for this for several reasons, which I won't get into because I think I've been very specific in the past. But I also don't like the practice of voting the same night as a public hearing. I think that's what used to be done, and it gives the impression, whether it's true or not, obviously, but it can give the impression that we're pushing things through. And I know it can be argued that this has really been vetted over and over and over, but it's something I really dislike that used to be done, so I will not be voting in favor of this.
If we vote in next meeting, would you vote in favor of it?
Unless I heard something very, very different, then we'd have to have another public hearing. But I really don't like, and even for veterinary, I don't think it's good practice. I don't think it's good process. I think this board's been really great about, in general, listening to the public, and it gives them a little more time. So that's what I'm going to do.
Roll call vote.
Well, I just wanted to say one thing. My first comments were made at the resolution itself, but just so that it's clear, there have been a number of public hearings in this. So this isn't the first time that we've spoken about this proposed text change at a public hearing. There's been several, and everyone on this board has had an opportunity to speak at length regarding this matter. So tonight was another public hearing, and basically I heard what I've heard before. So, I don't think that this is, if it's out of character for this board, in quotes, and maybe not good public policy in your opinion, the bottom line is this hasn't been the only meeting we had. If it had been, as you said now, with the other matter that was before us, then I would say fine. So, but in this case, this thing has been vetted a number of times, and also at work sessions, and also opportunities for people to send letters. I believe it was at least twice, so.
Okay, I made the motion. It was
Yeah.
discussed, and then I call for roll call vote.
Councilman Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilman Cullen.
Yes.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
No.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Yes.
Supervisor Hay.
No. Number 7, resolution adopting local law amending the chapter 138 zoning, and this is on the multi-force workforce housing district.
That's the mapping, correct?
No?
Resolution adopting the zoning map.
7 is the,
That's number 7.
What?
And then the zoning.
the zoning
Yes,
map.
number 7.
This is the zoning map.
Is that what I just read? Adopt the
But
local law amendment?
we didn't read the other local law. Should that have been read before we voted, or does it not
No,
matter?
it's,
It's not required.
Okay,
so we're on number 7, I take it.
yes.
Okay. Resolved that the Town Board of Town Southeast hereby adopts local law number 7 of 2016 pursuant to the Municipal Home Rule Law, amending local law, section 138-6 of the zoning code, zoning map, and zoning map authorized thereunder, to map and reclassify property described as 29 plus or minus parcel located at 41 Mount Ebo Road, North Brewster? Yeah.
Mount
No,
Ebo
wait,
Road North.
North. Sorry, there isn't North Brewster Road. Brewster, New York, tax map number 46-5-2, currently zoned as OP-2 to a multifamily workforce housing district, and be further resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to A, enter said local law in the minutes of this meeting and the code book of the town of Southeast, B, cause the zoning map of the town of Southeast be amended to reflect the adoption of this local law, and C, give due notice of the adoption of said local law by filing such with the Secretary of State, New York, within the time required by law. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion.
I would tonight be prepared to vote for this matter, but I'm going to make a motion to table it until the next meeting. Tony brought up a point regarding, that I hadn't heard too much until tonight regarding whatever you had there, Tony, can I see it?
Oh, this?
Yeah, so Tony brought up an issue involving resolution number 18 regarding rules of procedure regarding what might happen as a public hearing. I agree with Willis that Mr. Lord didn't necessarily say that which was opposition, but in order to err on the side of caution, I'd ask this board to table a vote on that resolution until October 6th. I think it's important that this is a matter that, at this point, be addressed in accordance with caution. So at that point in time.
So you're asking to table this matter to the October 6th meeting?
Yes, so I'd make a motion.
On the motion to table to the October 6th meeting?
I'll second.
Roll call vote?
Councilman Alvarez.
Yes.
Councilman Cullen.
No.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
Yes to table.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Yes to table.
Supervisor Hay.
Yes, to table.
And
Okay.
I just want to be on the record, though, I mean, I wasn't aware of that resolution, but I think to allow one person in the audience to stop a project or slow a project down, I think is very disingenuous. Not only, nothing against Mr. Lord, but in the future, you know, you could have one person just, for whatever reason, just want to, you know, cause an applicant to have to spend more money on coming to meetings and hiring professionals, you know, to represent them again. I just, you know, if there was several people out there against something, I would say fine, but obviously we can't change that now, but I just don't think one person should have that much power.
They might have a good point.
Okay. Okay, so the motion to table is, actually, it's not debatable, so we should.
No, okay, so I'm voting no, but.
Okay. Now, I have a problem. I expected both of these to fly, and I had comment that I was going to make after both of them were on the table, so to
See?
speak, which I did not do. So
And now the applicant has to pay for more legal notices and everything?
No.
No,
No,
that's
no,
voting. Oh,
no, there's
okay.
no
And
public
if you want a
hearing.
special, I mean, if you want a special meeting, it could be next
No,
Thursday
I'm
as
not,
well.
whatever, but it's just,
I would like to say too, I have no problem at all with a special meeting on a Thursday as long as it can.
I just think we all know kind of how everyone's going to vote tonight, or if it's going to be the next meeting, so it's, you know, I don't know. I just, you know, I mean, it's been, like Liz said, this has been vetted for 2 years. We had numerous public hearings, and, you know, I just, you know, would
Well, we're
rather
going to have
just
the
do-
vote the next meeting on
Okay,
October
that's fine,
6th, correct?
whatever. Yeah,
Yes.
Okay.
and hopefully we'll all be here then. so.
And I fully support this particular part of our rules that govern this board. And I said it, I think, maybe at the last meeting. I was involved at one point in time where we had a public hearing. I won't say I cried my eyes out, but it really changed my entire life, because after the public spoke, and not one person, and it had to be 15 people spoke out, mostly developers. I was not a developer at the time. I just had always rented a store. I bought a piece of property on Route 22, and I had every intention of development right next to Burger King. And the town board had a public hearing about calling a moratorium. And I went up there and explained, not being a politician, not even being probably whatever. I was a businessman that never owned my own property, and the town board asked us for a comment. And like anyone that spoke this evening, I went up, well, we didn't have to go up to a mic at the time, but it was down at 1 Main Street, and I spoke. And I explained how it was going to seriously affect my life, which it did. And right after that meeting, after probably 15 people opposed it vehemently, they voted, they read from a freaking prepared resolution. They didn't care what we had to say. And that's why they do what they do. So I don't have a problem. I think I like that rule because I was severely affected by it. Not that a week later would change it, like you're saying. It wouldn't change anything, but at least it would give me the solace that they listened to me. And they may have made a change. They might have said, geez, let's look into this. That's the purpose of it. So I fully support it. So at any rate, I had comment, which I was going to make after the both of them, but I'll reserve that comment until next meeting, which actually was meant for the first one, so I screwed up. But I'll be ready for next meeting as well. Okay. Next, resolution, Guardian Veterinary Management LLC special permit. Now let me get my bearings. Okay, resolved that the town board of Town Southeast hereby makes the following filings in fact in connection with the instant application. 1, the proposed use is in such location and is a size and character that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding district and will not be detrimental to the immediate site or adjacent properties. 2, the location and size of the proposed use, the nature and intensity of operations involved in or conducted in connection therewith, its site layout, and its relation to access streets, which will be such that both pedestrian and vehicular traffic to and from the use and the assembly of persons in connection thereof will not be hazardous. 3, the exterior appearance of the building will not hinder or discourage the development and use of adjacent land and buildings. And 4, the proposed use will not require such additional public facilities or services or create financial burdens upon the town greater than those which characterize uses permitted as of right. And be further resolved that based upon the foregoing findings, the town board of the town of Southeast hereby grants a special use permit to the subject premises in accordance with statement of use prepared and submitted to the planning board in connection with the project development plan application and incorporated herein by reference and the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall operate the facility in compliance with all conditions set forth in Article 10 of the zoning code. And 2, there shall be no outdoor display or storage of merchandise, equipment, or other items used in connection with or for sale of the establishment, and all signs or advertising in connection with the subject enterprise shall comply with the provisions of the zoning code. And be further resolved, the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to forward a certified copy of this resolution to Guardian Veterinary Management LLC, to the owner of record of the subject premises, to the Secretary of State, the Town of Southeast Planning Board, and to the Southeast Building Department forthwith. So moved for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
I can abstain or vote no. I think this is a good project. I wish the owner all the luck in the world, but again, I don't agree with the process of voting tonight. So in order to be consistent, I
No
will.
more abstaining.
I will abstain, please.
1 abstention noted.
And I just, this project is a good project, and no one's against it, and, to slow it down, a project where 50 people are gonna be working by 2 weeks, I don't really see the point of it, so I'm voting yes.
Okay.
So,
Number 9, resolution authorized commencement of civil enforcement proceedings, Brewster Plaza LLC. Now therefore be resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast hereby authorizes the town attorney to commence any and all civil actions in law and in equity in a court of appropriate jurisdiction against Brewster Plaza LLC, Sunny Vitage, and or any other responsible or necessary party in connection with the ownership, occupancy, maintenance, and control of premises located at 979-989 Route 22, Town of Southeast, tax map number 68.5-2-2, seeking to compel compliance with the town zoning code, building and property maintenance codes, and to abate any and all nuisances resulting from the violation of such codes, rules, and regulations. And for the record, a lot of times people know what the tax map number is. Bottom line, it's the building, and this does not affect the tenants in any way, so I'll say basically Maggie's and,
The veterans,
Yes, a
nursing, the
chiropractor.
nursing.
but what's the other, I go there to eat.
Alice Branding,
The pizza
chiropractor.
place.
No, what's
and
the other place? What's,
Portofino's, Portofino's.
beside Maggie's? What's-
Portofino, and there's
Tom and
also.
Tom and Jerry's. That building has nothing to do with any of the tenants, it's only with the property owner. So
This-
move for discussion.
So I can actually move for discussion, if I could just clarify.
Discussion?
Second.
Okay, there have been some enforcement actions brought against this particular landowner regarding a pre-existing stanchion sign that the owner was actually tried in absentia because he had showed up in an earlier court proceeding and then failed to show up when it was set for trial. The trial took place, there was some fines issued, and those fines are now docketed as judgment against the property. We commenced additional proceedings, new proceedings, recently, and as of last Tuesday, he was supposed to be in court. He did not appear. So one of the purposes for our criminal proceedings is it's a little more advantageous to us that we can use the threat of being imposed fines as leverage to get property owners to bring their property into compliance. We had a neighboring property that had a similar situation. They were cited, and they voluntarily removed the particular structure, and they were not fined as a result. Here we have someone who just doesn't seem to want to pay attention. The only way we can get a court to direct the removal or enjoin is to go to a court of equity. And criminal courts, especially local criminal courts, cannot do equity, believe it or not. And Liz knows what I'm talking about. And so therefore, we have to go to the expense of commencing a separate proceeding in Supreme Court to get an order directing the removal of this. And if they fail to do it, then it would be contempt of court.
And under further discussion, when we were doing the sign law about 3 years ago, this gentleman who owned the plaza and almost every tenant within the plaza were quite vocal about the sign ordinance. And 3 years ago, and to this day, he has not put up a sign for the tenants that spoke out about sign law. So no matter what size they were allowed, I believe they're probably the only building in the town that doesn't have a sign. And that's not fair to those tenants.
And
So,
that's why a lot of them probably closed.
well, at least one, and hopefully the
Well,
rest
one, and
remains
I
successful.
think the other
Each one of
ones
those tenants has a
On the
sign
building.
on the
Yes.
building.
But what attracts anyone to any business is the sign that's on the main road. I mean, you can't see it sometimes, and of course, my recommendation usually, if you're only entitled to a small sign like we allow, at least put the name of the plaza and your number, so when you're riding down the road, there's ABC Plaza, and Route 10 or whatever the number is, and it identifies them. You're not gonna read individually like the Acme sign up there. Yeah, I sit there at the stop sign, I've been trying to read it now for the past 20 years. They probably had change of attendance, and I still haven't gotten to the end of it. So, anyway, any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Number 11. Nope. Number 10, resolution. Authorized commencement of civil enforcement proceeding, SANT. Now therefore be resolved, the town board of the town of Southeast hereby authorize the town attorney to commence any and all civil actions in law and in equity in a court of appropriate jurisdiction against Dennis and Kathleen Sant and or any other responsible or necessary party in connection with the ownership, occupancy, maintenance, and control of premises located at 293 North Brewster Road, AKA Tenetta Lake Road, tax map number 56.12-1-3, seeking to compel compliance with the town zoning, building, and property maintenance codes, and to abate any and all nuisances resulting from the violation of such codes, rules, and regulations. It be further resolved that the town board of the town of Southeast hereby appoints Joseph P. Capali, Esquire, Capali Valdez LLP, having an office at 370 Lexington Avenue, Suite 1500, New York, New York, 10017, as special counsel for the purpose of commencing and litigating a matter of Town of Southeast versus Sant et al. In Putnam County Supreme Court to compel compliance with the state and local building and zoning and occupancy laws, codes, and be further resolved that special counsel shall be compensated at a rate of $185 per hour for attorney time and shall not be reimbursed for, and shall be reimbursed. I wish it was shall not be, but it is. Shall be reimbursed for all the necessary disbursements made on behalf of the town. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, number 11, appointment of special counsel. Resolved that the town board of Townside hereby appoints Joseph P. DePauli, Esquire, DePauli Valdez LLP, having an office at 370 Lexington Avenue, Suite 1500, New York, New York 10017, as special counsel in connection with the matter entitled Santucci versus Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Southeast, commenced pursuant to Article 78 of the Civil Practice Law and Rule, and be it further resolved that said special town counsel shall be compensated at a rate of $185 per hour for attorney time and shall be reimbursed for all necessary disbursements made on behalf of the town. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Again, Lynn, this is your favorite topic. It only comes up once a month, pardon?
Do we have to do job parity?
No. It's usually been done. Next is the supervisor's financial report. Okay. What do you want to hear? Good news, bad news?
Oh, give us the bad news first.
It's kind of all good news. We do have a problem with outside council line, which I've been saying now for at least 5 straight months. We busted the budget. Your budget for 2017 is 99.9% done. I can report to the board this evening that it's at the tax cap, exactly, only because it was 0.68%. So there's like no wiggle room. When you get your document, please don't sneeze. I don't want you to move one number because it might screw up the works. But we did come under the budget, but that's for next year. So this year, our biggest problems is the outside council line, which was 110. Right now, we're up to about 150. I'm hoping next year is not as bad, at least I'm hoping. So I did increase the outside council line, which I hate to do, but have to do, because this is the second year that we basically busted the budget. And another line now has been red flagged because of the outside council line, believe it or not, that we've had to use the town engineer to go out to certain sites in the town with these individuals that are suing the town or have problems within the town, and that's breaking the bank at this point in time too. Now, so we have 2 red flags. The second red flag, it had to happen sooner or later, because again, every time our town engineer goes out to a site and is not paid by the applicant, but in this case, there's no applicant, it's just enforcing zoning code, and it does mount up. So 2 red flags. Bless you. I've accounted for it in next year's budget, and again, we're going to stay within the tax cap for next year, so that's good news.
Can we recoup any of the engineer's fees as a result of the matter? I mean, I think the fact of the matter is we have to be aggressive in receiving the fines that are levied by the courts and/or trying to be recouped for expenses such as an engineer having to go up there. You know, it's not an applicant, but it's somebody that has violated the codes, and now here we are with the engineer, and now we have to spend that extra money.
Well, unfortunately, not all of these investigations result in convictions. And I won't go into names because some of these matters are a matter of litigation, and I don't think it's appropriate to do it in the public forum. We can certainly discuss it more in executive session. But a lot of this was in preliminary investigation, and there are situations where our engineers disagreed with their engineers, and ultimately, in this one instance, the planning board ended up deadlocked as to the ruling, basically putting us in a position where we don't have a clear path. This is one of the matters that's being handled by special counsel.
Okay.
So, and that's the one that I think has generated a lot of activity by our engineers.
Okay, thank you.
And our town engineer, usually we have an escrow account here in the town, and people contribute to it, but each one of these unfortunately have fallen outside of that. It's within his jurisdiction, of course, to review it on behalf of the town, and we have to pick up the dime, but it's not dimes, it's actually thousands of dollars that we've had to pick up this year, so. Okay, with that, I'll entertain comment from the public.
John Lord. I want to thank the board for postponing the vote because there was opposition to voiced to that one proposal for the mapping. Thank you for at least taking the time to consider the some of the comments that were made. I wasn't able to attend the August 18th meeting. I was able to watch it on TV. I looked at minutes today. At that meeting, I don't think there was any opposition voiced, and I don't recall much opposition being voiced during all your vetting. I don't think one person has great power, and I really do appreciate you at least taking the time to appear to consider any opposing points of view, considering the amendment. But thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Anyone else from the public? You have to come up to the mic if you don't mind. If you had enough fun, you can come back again.
Hello, I'm Peggy Bruin, and I live in the village of Brewster for the past year and a half. And I grew up here, and I live at Mary Mitchell Court. And I've been tuning in to what goes on in the village of Brewster with going to a lot of the meetings, and I've had some success. Christine was very, very helpful in getting the carding changed, the laws of the carding changed so that it didn't happen at 1:30 in the morning every Tuesday and Friday. That we got it within the outside of the peace law, not laws, but regulations or whatever that were on the website, which is part of the reason why I moved to Brewster, the village. But anyway, after 16 months, I've gone to quite a few of the village meetings, and it's all interesting. They're doing remarkable things with Wells Park, and Founder's Day was a huge success, and I like to be part of it all. But I have an issue with living there on Marvin Avenue with the aggressively multiplying numbers of day workers that are on the Federal Road, US 6, and at the top of Marvin Avenue. And I haven't been very successful in getting any motion going with the village to make a change. And I've gotten, well, you should have been here 8 years ago. Well, I wasn't. And it's been cleaned up, and the revitalization of Brewster is going to take care of a lot of it. But still, even in the 16 months that I have lived in the village, and I really like my accommodations, it has increased. So that 42 men are standing, and I don't mean to be gendered, I'm not. It could be women. Can you imagine if 42 women were standing, at the top of Marvin and 6? But that many. And I go to the bank. I do like to use the village. I, go to the pool hall. I got Mrs. Durkin and Mr. Durkin in there for the first time in their life on Founder's Day, and I like the village. But it is a growing problem, and I know you've tackled it before. But I think it's time to revisit it and to look at it and to somehow. Put a halt to the loitering and the vagrancy and the, I've looked into ICE, I've called ICE, I've looked into the laws of loitering, which everyone disregards, and You know, I'm a single person. I just don't know how it can be tolerated or changed. And I welcome any help in that area.
Okay, I would ask you to make the same speech next time you can, if you haven't already made it to the village board, because the village and the town are, actually, they're in the town, but the village has its own government.
Yes,
And
I
this
do.
board, of course, can't do anything.
Well, I was sent to Consumer Affairs by the trustees, and I called them, and they said that they have no jurisdiction or enforcement on licensed, you know, contractors that pick up these people.
Who has no enforcement power?
The Putnam Consumer Affairs, I have the enforcement, I was given the enforcement number to talk to, and I spoke to a gal up there, and she says, well, we only issue the licenses, we cannot enforce those licenses. So all those trucks that are stopped picking up the day workers, they have to be ticketed or for either they have a license or don't have a license, but that was the vein that I was pushed, that I was recommended to go down to, you know, get a hold of the situation there.
Well, the village of Brewster does have policing powers. They have a police force, so I would go back to the village and tell them what you encountered with Putnam County, so the law could be enforced, but it would have to be done by the village police department.
Well, I have. I've taken it there 4 times, and I just thought, because we were on the Birch Hill was on the agenda tonight, so I just
Try to
thought-
sneak in.
I thought I'd voice, but I know it's a village thing, but there is nothing that they can do except I have to go to the property owners, which I have done, Mr. Ledley and so forth, and slowly advancing on that. But it's being ignored, and I don't know where else to go. So I'll go back to the village.
Well, the only good thing is we televise, so the public will hear it, and then maybe someone will call.
Thank you, but I do see the town of Southeast Police go through, the sheriff
No,
department.
the town of Southeast does not. The village of Brewster has a police force. The town does not. Sheriff's Department does, and the state police do.
Yeah.
You used to probably see our code enforcement
Yeah, I
officers.
see
That's different. We
Right.
don't enforce codes in the village, only the town of Southeast. The village, again, is a separate entity.
So the Southeast could not stop anybody and ask them for any?
No.
Not in the village.
Just the village?
Yeah, not in the village.
I mean, we have
That's
the
unfortunate.
town officers in the village, but, right, the
Yeah.
village has their own codes and.
They have their own code
And it's
enforcement.
their,
officer. They have
their
their own-
jurisdiction.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of knew that, but I just thought I'd open it up a little further. Thank you. for
Thank you.
listening.
Anyone else from the public? Town board?
I just wanted to say that Founder's Day was a great success. I hope you all went out there and enjoyed it. It was a beautiful day, a lot of people, a lot of vendors, and I look forward to next year's.
Lynn?
I just wanted the board to know that as library liaison, I went to their monthly meeting on Wednesday. They've extended an invitation for the town board members they would love us to visit and get a tour to show us what they need. This was in regards to the possibility of a floating, of a referendum for $2.6 million. I did explain that I spoke for myself, but I felt it was the feeling of the board that we really feel it's important for our residents to understand exactly what's being asked for, what the project is, and that a special election doesn't really bring in the voters, as many voters, and that we would like it to be at a general election. So they were very cordial. I thought it was a productive meeting, and I just wanted to let you all know that they would welcome us to visit, and I should go back and get a tour, because I have been in the library more than a few times, but they'll probably want to point things out, so.
I still own a past due book from 57, so I can't go.
You can't go now.
Throw a lot of money
No.
at it.
They
I
have
think
a
they
watch
have-
poster with your face on it.
Trustee openings, I heard, or-
Yes, and they do have trustee openings, so anyone who is interested in becoming a trustee, they do have a website. If you just Google Brewster Public Library, make sure it's New York, because there's a million of them, other places. But they are looking for trustees. And I am going to meet, they have a building committee. I said I was interested in meeting with the architect. I really think the more educated the public is, the better decision we'll be able to make when when or if this does become, go on the ballot as referendum. So I just wanted to update the public and the town board.
Okay, so next Friday's budget is due to the town clerk. I will have it in her hands at that point in time. I can actually give it to her tonight, but there's a few more I's I gotta dot and T's to cross. And part of my budget process this year, I am gonna request that the Brewster Fire Department, the Brewster Library, and the museum, that the town, and I'm hoping the board will support me on this, I am gonna require them in the future anytime, because again, we end up in our budget, forward the money to these individuals. I'm gonna ask them for a complete detailed budget line similar to our town board that they must submit to us. We've been reading a lot about it in the paper. I think it's better on our due diligence if we have these big ticket items in our budget, that we want details and not just a number. We have some big numbers. There's one like, $320,000. I think we should know what makes up that 320 or even 5. I mean, we have a detailed budget. I'm asking them to comply with the same.
I think it's a really good idea. I also met with Amy Campanero, the museum director. We had a really productive meeting. I think I forwarded, and she's very willing to come in front of the board if the board would like to talk about programs next year. As I said, it was very productive. I think that the museum really has started having a lot more programs and things that would interest the general public. So she's very willing to come talk about any programming if the board would like her to.
It'd probably be a good idea to have the leaders of each of those entities to come and discuss even the budgets.
Yeah.
Their own individual budgets.
Yeah. So,
If the board would like that.
I mean, it would be nice to have the fire district, they could send a representative to one of our town board meetings where it's on camera and they could explain their budget. I don't think we could make them do it, but it would be nice if they did it.
Yeah.
I think, again, they provide a great service to the community, but again, there's some numbers there. I just think we need more detail, not just
I just think, I mean, I support that and hope they would do it. I just don't think legally we have the authority to tell them to do anything.
It's just extending an invitation, I would agree. But I think everybody's under more scrutiny. I think that's a good thing. And as I said, Amy would be, I think she didn't come last year, I don't think so. Maybe it would be a good thing for her to come this year because they have a lot of exciting programs. And we should, I think, I can extend an invitation to her. I'm happy to.
Well, do it for the next meeting, and if she accepts, we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
Tell her she's got 4.5 minutes.
Okay. No, Amy's very brief, and I told her I didn't think a PowerPoint presentation was necessary at all, just to.
She's already prepared the document for 2017. She can discuss that.
Yep. Okay.
Any other comment? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to close tonight's meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you.